Welcome to Intensive Data Analysis with Pivottable. In this training, we are going to be illuminating humanity's tale with Pivottables. It's a story we would like to use to show how Pivottable can be used to analyze a data set and derive insights. So, what is the tale that we are after? In a world striving for positive change, Havron embarked on a noble mission, a humanitarian support campaign spanning across several countries. Each nation was tasked with embracing 3 unique campaign approaches: grassroots, regional, and national approaches, all with one unified goal: to recruit compassionate enrollees ready to make a difference. As the months rolled by, the campaign echoed its message of hope, attracting eager hearts and committed souls. The enrollees' number steadily grew, and with each new recruit, the impact of Havron's efforts reverberated across borders. But this journey was not just about numbers, it was about understanding the heart and soul of the campaign. Data flowed in like an unstoppable tide, capturing the essence of every effort. Each month's recruits and the associated costs were meticulously recorded, adding depth to this profound tale of humanity. And now, as the project draws to its conclusion, the project management stands poised, eager to unlock the countless stories held within the data. The quest for insights begins, and in the pursuit of understanding, the power of Pivottables comes to the front. With Pivottables as our guide, we will delve into the heart of this case study, exploring the very essence of Havron's mission. Questions abound, and Pivottables, with their versatile magic, hold the key to unraveling every answer. From the most impactful campaign approach to the cost effectiveness of each endeavor, the Pivottables will illuminate the path forward. So join us as we journey into the world of data-driven insights. Together, we will transform raw numbers into stories of hope and unravel the tapestries of Havron's humanitarian campaign. Welcome to a realm where data speaks and hearts listen. Welcome to the world of Pivottable magic. Now, the next thing we are going to be looking at is what the management of Havron was interested in finding out from this campaign. And we have a couple of them here, about 19 questions. One of them is, which campaign approach resulted in the highest number of enrollees? How does the enrollment rate vary among the different campaign approaches? What is the distribution of enrollees across different regions for each campaign approach? Is there a correlation between the campaign approach and the geographical location of the enrollees? What was the cost effectiveness of each campaign approach in terms of the number of enrollees generated per unit of cost? Did the campaign approach have a significant impact on the enrollment rate compared to the overall population? Are there any specific regions where a particular campaign approach was particularly successful or unsuccessful? How does the distribution of enrollees differ between urban and rural areas for each campaign approach? Was there any specific time period during which a particular campaign approach saw higher enrollment rates? How many enrollees were recruited in each country for each campaign approach? What is the total number of enrollees recruited for each campaign approach across all countries? How does the number of enrollees recruited vary across different months for each campaign approach? Can we identify any patterns or trends in the number of enrollees recruited based on the country's population size? What was the total expenditure incurred for each campaign approach in each country? How does the expenditure for each campaign approach compare with the number of enrollees recruited in terms of cost effectiveness? What is the retention rate for each campaign approach at the end of the program? Are there any differences in enrollment patterns between countries grouped in different categories, probably based on geographical, region, or socioeconomic factors? How does the retention rate correlate with the number of enrollees recruited in each country for each campaign approach? And finally, can we identify any relationship between the country's population size and the number of enrollees recruited for each campaign approach? You will see that this is quite enormous. And to tell you the truth, Pivottable is here to help us bring out these insights from this story. Now, when we were generating questions, it is possible we may have generated similar questions framed in a different way. So by the time we start delving into unraveling or covering these insights, we may see some questions that look similar, and we can take them as duplicates, and then we can remove any one of them. Again, it is possible that the data set that we have may not be adequate to answer all of them. So anyone that the data set is not sufficient to answer, then we'll skip it. Already I'm seeing one, for instance, talking about social economic status, and that's question number 17, based on geographical region or socioeconomic factors. So the question specifically says, are there any differences in enrollment patterns between countries grouped in different categories? Well, the example that is here is we group the countries according to geographical region, not really taking into cognizance whether they are from the north or the south or the central Africa, but we just grouped them, okay? So we might say, we might assign group A, group B, group C differently like that based on economic status, okay? So this is something that we are going to decide in the course of this training. So friends, you will believe and understand with me that this is going to be a very interesting journey into data analysis with pivot tables. Now, here we have our data set, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows, sorry, 8 columns, okay? And then for these numbers, for instance, enrollees recruited, you will see that these are not absolute numbers. From column E, they are not absolute numbers. You can see the formula that we use is a run between function, which generates numbers randomly per each operation. The same thing for population here, the same thing for the expenditure, the same thing for retention. We did this so that we will use it to buttress one of the key topics that we'll be dealing with in this the training, and that's about refreshing your pivot table to get fresh data. All right, so at this point, I just want to let us know that we have put this so that when you begin to work with this practice file and the numbers begin to change, or your number is different from another participant's number figures, or different from ours, yes, it is imputed that way. If I press my function F9 key, you see that these numbers, the numbers under these 4 columns, they keep changing. All right, so we are going to discuss this, but I wanted to give you heads up so that you wouldn't feel, you would just get to know that the numbers will change as you continue to work, and you don't really need to have the same, arrive at the same answer with us when you follow on. So friend, This is going to be a very great time, and it's a highly loaded training. It's made up of 9 modules. Okay, so module 1 is introducing you to the concept of pivot tables, and it's something that is very, 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 very important. After the first one, we will now delve into how to create pivot tables. Okay, so we are going to, that's in module 2, we will discuss step by step of how to create pivot table. Meanwhile, before this module 2, we said that module 1 is introducing you to pivot tables, and we are going to be talking about what the pivot tables are, why do we use pivot tables for analysis, and then how does the structure look? What are the components of the pivot table? How do they function? How do they interact and relate? And then when they interact, how does it produce what you want? So we laid down that basics in module 1. In module 2, we will delve into creating a pivot table, and that is selecting the data range, inserting a pivot table, and then understanding the different fields. In module 1, we describe the 4 fields, talking about the rows, the columns, the values, and the filter fields. So in module 2, we are going to be understanding how they interact, practical experience, hands-on tutorial that you will really get hooked on. Now in module 3, we are going to be manipulating the pivot tables. So we are going to be changing the pivot table layout. We are going to be grouping our data by date, by categories. We are going to be applying sorting, ranking, and filtering our pivot table. And then we are going to be having some calculations. There are inbuilt calculations in pivot table. So we are going to be summarizing the data with functions like the sum, the count, the average. We are going to look into how to create calculated fields and calculated items. These are custom calculations embedded in pivot table. We are also going to be using the custom formulas in pivot tables. In module 5, we will look at working with pivot table options. And what are these? Changing the number formats and styles, showing and hiding grand totals and subtotals, customizing row and column labels. In module 6, we are going to be slicing and dicing our data, using slicers to filter data interactively, creating and using timeline filters. So we are going to be introduced to slicers and timelines, and then we will utilize the timeline for date-based analysis. It's going to be a very wonderful time in this data analysis journey. And in module 7, we are going to be looking at pivot charts and pivot table dashboards. Well, this is where the data speaks on its own when you present them on dashboards. So we are going to be looking how to create pivot tables from pivot charts from pivot tables. How do we combine multiple pivot tables to build a dashboard? How do we format and customize pivot charts? And then in module 8, we are going to be advancing to pivot table techniques. This will involve connecting multiple data sources. We are going to look at briefly look at Power Pivot, Power Query, how we combine this with pivot tables, and then how do we handle large data sets efficiently. And then in module 9, we will look at visualizing and reporting data. But this is going to be the hallmark of it. How are you going to create your dashboard? How are you going to use data, visualization to tell a story? And so we are looking at presenting pivot table results effectively, and then using conditional formatting to highlight key insights. And then we create pivot table based reports. Great. And then in module 10, we will begin to, yes, I actually said there were module 9. So the module 10 is not really a module per se, but we can use it as module 10 to respond to those questions that we highlighted at the beginning of this introduction. Okay, so those 19 questions, we are going to dwell on them after the module 9. Okay, so we can call that module 10, or we can use the scenario, the case study. So that's what we are going to be doing after module 9, using the case story, because by that time we would have acquainted ourselves with what Pivottable is, what how to apply them, how to use them effectively to answer our insight questions. So friends, I welcome you to a world of data mysteries. And I tell you, you can tell your friends, you can share this video with them, let them also understand, and let them look out for the videos that will be coming. So we are going to be making a lot of videos. We want to make them short videos. And if any module will go beyond the duration, we do not want it to exceed maybe 15-25 minutes. If anyone is going to exceed that based on what we want to explain, we'll split it and say, okay, module 9A, module 9B, something like that. All right, so that once you hit a particular video, you watch it and then you grab what the content is telling. All right, so we are looking forward to having our module 1 drop. Please, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, subscribe, share with other loved ones. Our aim in Havron is to expand and improve access to knowledge. We want to improve people's ability to perform better at work, enhance productivity. And so by the time you share this with co-workers, colleagues, friends, you would be joining us to bridge the skills gaps, not only in Africa, beyond Africa, and there is where we are soaring. So thank you for watching. Let's watch out for the next video.